Josh White with the Washington Post, and I've just started recording this conversation. Could you say your name, please?
Lee Malvo.
Okay, and you're okay with me recording this conversation and publishing it on our website?
Yes, yes,
okay. All right, great. Well, we talked about a number of things yesterday, and I'd love to start with whatever you would like to start with. You know, one of the things that, of course, we're really interested in is how you're doing today, and sort of what you're like today, and some of your perspectives 10 years later. So I'm sort of interested in if you could tell people about yourself now, what would you want people to know about Lee Malvo?
That's actually a tough question. I've had to be my own psychologist, therapist, counselor, and priest. And I've basically spent the last 7 years in recovery trying to get back to where I was before I met Muhammad. And my goals, my thought processes, my morals, that's what I've returned to. And finding myself in this position, I'm glad to be alive. And I'm just trying to figure out, you know, where do I go from here? Because that's the question. It's a quandary because everything that I've wanted to do is lost. And the position that I put myself in doesn't leave a lot of options that are either pleasant or fulfilling. There's a lot of, and what I have to live with for the rest of my life is not something I'd wish anyone have to live with. It's going to be a long and hard road, and I'll just make the best of it I can.
Now, when you mentioned the what you have to live with, can you talk a little bit about that? I think you were really eloquent yesterday in what that is, sort of the knowledge of what happened, what you were made to be like, and then trying to reconcile that with who you really are.
The knowledge that I have to live with is not only the images and the experiences and the guilt that came along with that, but also the question that's always bothered me is one of what inside me made that possible. And there's no simple answer for that. I'm working on forgiving myself. There are different layers. And I'm rediscovering what matters to me, what I value, and just trying to live out my life the best way I can based on those values. I try to live where I am today and just deal with the things that are right before me. I don't delve too much in the past because that's not something that you can relive every day and be sane. It just is on an even more intimate level. I've basically lost everything. I mean, I've lost everything. I've gained perspective. I've gained experience. But right now I understand what happened. I understand the role I played. I understand what happened to me. And I understand the consequences and the spillover that affected many people's lives. But the question where I'm at is one question: where do I go from here? And it's something that I'm discovering simultaneously as I go along. It's a step-by-step process. There's no blueprint for this. There's no booklet.
Sure. Well, and let's talk a little bit about that. The what happened to you. I think I was really interested yesterday in the fact that you had mentioned that you and your situation were ripe for the picking. That Mr. Muhammad found the right person to do these things to and to carry these things out with. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how you see yourself having been brought into that and where it brought you?
Well, hurting people hurt people. It's something I wrote in a poem several years ago, and I find it to be true. Because if you don't value yourself or value your life, or if under the persona that you wear there's a deep-seated hate, if that is channeled in the wrong direction, it is blind rage. There's no other way to explain it. And I needed answers. I needed someone to listen. And he facilitated that. And the emotional hold is very hard to explain. People say, well, if I were put in that position and someone told me to do this, it's not that simple. There was a chasm that was created by years of neglect and abuse. I mean, there was not a chance for a stable personality to take root, because from the age of 6.5, I kept bouncing around from home to home, place to place, and I became what I call a changeling. Whoever I'm around, whoever the authority is, I change to suit that person. So if I live with this person, then I find out what works for them, and I change to be that. So in many ways, I was right, because I've been practicing doing that. I've been practicing doing that. That's why very quickly when I met Muhammad, I assimilated everything about him, from his mannerisms, his religion. I lost my accent. I just became someone different, because it was something I'm used to doing in order to please the person I'm around. Because everyone that was around eventually left. And once he gained my trust, I mean, I was a lost cause. And what made it even more, the person, ever since I can remember, the person who I idealized was my father. And my father's a very simple man. He's not educated, but he intuitively understood what I needed, whenever I needed it. And I've always looked up to him. And, those last periods of time between the age of 10 and 12 when I ran away to him several times. And that particular last occasion when I found him, and there was a look he always had in his eye. And when I found him, he was surprised to see me, but the look was also, why are you here? And, I could tell that 5 minutes earlier, he didn't care if I ate, if I slept, if I was alive, it never registered. It never registered. And leading up to that, right after that, I tried to commit suicide. But my mother, she'd been through a rough patch. She just got deported. And I became the punching bag, the proverbial punching bag, as usual. And I decided to hang myself. Now, right next, well, in the yard that we live, there is a carpentry shop right next to it. And one of the guys that worked there, who I was a friend with whenever I spent summers, his name was, we called him Blacka. And he saw what I was going to do, and he came up on the tree behind me because I was out of it of sorts. I didn't see him, and he cut the rope, and that's how I saved my life. The makeshift rope I made from a sheet. 2 days later, my mom beat me to a bloody pulp, opened the door, pointed at the tree, threw the rope out, and told me, go ahead and kill yourself. So at that point, I took her to my guidance counselor, preacher, vice principal at my high school, and when she was walking out of me in that door, when I was 13 years old, I said, do you realize that you're losing me? And she just looked at me from head to toe like I was a piece of shit and just kept moving. And at that point in time, that was the last time I wrote my journal. And I wrote what I wrote. I remember it was a single paragraph. I have no one I can depend on but me. And if I fail, I am going to die. I will never, ever again shed a tear because it changes nothing. It rests on me. And I wrote a list of things I wanted to achieve by the age of 25. And when I was 25, on my birthday, I was in a room with a detective answering questions about some person I had robbed and tried to kill for no other reason than I was told to do so. And while I was in that room, it was as if I was outside of my body. And I went back to where I was at 13, and I felt those emotions. And for about a year, I was just drifting because I tried to avoid this, and there was no help. I mean, if children came to this world being equipped with everything that they needed, they wouldn't need parents.
Well, now tell me, you mentioned that I tried to avoid this. In fact, you said you did everything you could do to not be in the situation that you're in. What did Muhammad offer you, a kid who was lost? What did he offer you, and what was so attractive about it that led you?
It's something very simple. Parents, when they're not there, they try to give their children a lot of things, but they're just things. They have no intrinsic meaning or significance, but that which we attach to them. He gave me his time. His time, that's the only thing we possess. And where we invest it tells what we value. He gave me his time. He was consistent. Even though the consistency was madness, he was consistent. He gave me his time. It's that simple. He was one of the only people who listened. For example, if he was doing something, this is when I first met him in Antigua, before he had all the nervous breakdowns and had a need for bloodlet. If he was doing something, I could correct him and he was wrong, if he was wrong. If he didn't know something, ask him a question, we could go to the library together and discuss it. He didn't interrogate me. He gave me his time. That's all I asked for. And it was that simple. Because no one else had the time for me. No one.
And we talked a little bit about this too, but talk about the control, how that changed from someone who, a father figure, a mentor, someone who was sort of treating you as being on the same level, to how did you describe it? Like, you described it yesterday quite well. Describe what he then did.
He became a master puppeteer. It began when when we first met, when my mom immediately left. I got sick for 2 weeks. And I gave him a Bible to myself. I told him everything within that period. He stayed with me the entire time and nursed me back to health. And I told him my entire life story. My parents, my situations, when I bounced around, what I felt. I left nothing out because I trusted this guy. And at that point in time, he gave me no reason not to. This was the kind of guy who were walking down the street and a child walks by us with ringworm all over his head, and he stops the child, calls whoever he was going to meet, telling him he's going to be late, takes the child home, asks the mom permission to get him medicine. And before I left the island, every time I went shopping, I had to deliver goods to this boy who I didn't even know his name. So this was the kind of person I knew. He saw a problem, he fixed it. If you were a friend or even an associate, he came in your house, there was something wrong, he saw it, he didn't ask you, he just fixed it. If your blender was broken, he got you a new blender. If something was wrong with your car, he fixed it. That was someone who I looked up to. He was in control, he was certain of himself. Now, leading forward, the groundwork was laid in Antigua because I leaned on him, I trusted him. I did not trust my mom, I didn't trust anyone else, but I trusted him. And I was unable to distinguish between Muhammad.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I'll call back. I was unable to distinguish between Muhammad the father I had wanted and Muhammad the nervous wreck that was just falling to pieces. And he understood exactly how to motivate me by giving approval or denying approval. And it's very subtle. It wasn't violent at all. It's like what a pimp does to a woman. That's the best description I can offer. Give me a second, I'm going to call back.
Okay. Hello?
This is Global Tellink. This call originates from a Virginia correctional facility and may be recorded or monitored. You have a collect call from
Lee Malvo.
An inmate in Red Onion State Prison. To hear the maximum cost of this call, press 9. To accept, dial 0 now. Who's this? Your call is being connected. Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Hello?
Hi, Lee.
Hey, man.
Hey, and I'm still recording, just FYI.
All right. That's fine.
So you mentioned it's like what a pimp does to...
This call originates from a Virginia correctional facility and may be recorded or monitored.
You mentioned it's like what a pimp does to a woman. Tell me how it was that he... You talked about how he was basically trying to kill Lee Malvo and create John Lee Muhammad.
Well, when I first arrived in Bellingham, he told me that he's searching for the children. Now, everything was given to me in stages. He didn't say, we're going to go out here, we're going to kill people. He never said that. Not until August of 2002. Did he really lay out a plan for what has come to known as the D.C. shootings? He told, and I was used to this from living with him in Antigua. It was a need-to-know basis. He just said, look, I need for you to go to the range. He had a friend, Earl, and just tell Earl to teach me how to shoot. He didn't tell me anything. Just teach me how to shoot. Then, once that was done, and I learned, it's amazing how quickly I would pick up on these things. I mean, I shot like 52 weapons, and it was amazing how quickly I picked up on it. And once that was finished, he took me to the range, and he said, in order to get the children, we're going to have to do whatever it takes. And I looked at him as my family, and they as my siblings, so I'm like, okay, we're going to do whatever it takes. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. I really did. And he told me the old person has to die. Lee Malvo has to die because Lee Malvo cannot do this. And he took me to the range. And there's something I've come to learn that, believe this or not, it actually worked on me. I can fall into a trance very, very, very easily. I've learned that because I've taken on yoga and I do chanting. I can very, very easily. And he would for 2 weeks he had me superimpose my face until I could read his feet. And kill myself over and over and over and over and over for like 9 to 12 hours a day. And when he'd stand behind me, he would talk me through the process. He would explain to me all the things that I hated about myself and why this has to die. And it was rooted in a mixture of his worldview and the Nation of Islam stuff. He twisted a lot of things that he knew would motivate me. So it's like, your personality is that of a slave. We're against this system. You've been trained to believe and to bind to the system. Everything that you've been taught from your religion, your morals, your education, you've basically been brainwashed. And he just went over and over and over and over, and there was no resistance on my part because I trust him. I trust him implicitly. And when he taught me through the process, the very first killing, he taught me how to sit down, to control my breathing, to visualize exactly what I need to do. Let nothing else, no other thoughts come in your mind. Focus exactly on what you have to do.
Did you know at that point that he was training you to kill for him?
When he had me at the range, he just told me that I had to die. And then one night he just comes in and says, okay, this is what I need for you to do. And it was always on a need-to-know basis. I never had 2 weeks notice. So everything was on a need-to-know basis. That's how he's always operated. So he just came in like 2 days and said, listen, there is a house right here on this hill. I'm going to drive you and drop you off. I want you to go there. I want you to watch it. I want you to go to the door, ring the bell. I want you to talk to this person. I want to see no fear in your face. I want you to engage in a conversation. I want you to see yourself, and I want you to kill yourself. And that is exactly what I did. This is exactly what happened. I mean, people may think...
That broke you up.
Yes, it did. But not while I was doing the task and not in his sight. Once it had happened, and then I returned to the apartment, and I went to the bathroom, I threw up, and I was shaking. And like, I stayed in there for a time, he knocked on the door, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And like an hour later, I composed myself, took a shower, and came out, because I felt dirty, so I took a shower, and I came out. And he already had something prepared for me to do. I mean, people think it's outlandish or it's crazy. I mean, they're cowards who take children and tell them to strap a bomb. You didn't see Osama bin Laden strapping the bombs himself in and going up in a bus full of people and blowing them up. They always found some idiot who's capable of doing it. Or someone they abused and maligned and just get him or her to do that. So it happens every day. I mean, it happened It happens in the Congo. It happens. I mean, they're in America and Europe and other places. There are thousands of child soldiers who escaped from that situation, and they're living their life and they're functioning, and they've done terrible things.
Now, you mentioned child soldier. It's a really
interesting
way of putting it.
Don't want to participate.
Lee, you still there?
Oh, no, hold on. They just came to my door to do a hearing, so I told them I didn't want to participate. Go ahead. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you talking to me now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, they just came to do a hearing, and I told them I didn't want to participate. So.
Okay. You mentioned child soldier.
Yeah.
And when we talked yesterday, you mentioned this idea of sort of being on a military mission. Is that what it felt like? I mean, you started in Washington, but you guys went all over the place, I imagine.
So we were searching for Mildred. So he had someone, a friend of his, who had access to. He worked for a major phone company, and as a result, he could check everything. If you have an electronic footprint, if you receive a check, you register in the system. So wherever Mildred was, that's where we went. And if there was someone there who we needed to extract information from, that's what happened. And during that period of time, he would train by doing. He started out with murder, then robberies, and the robberies were just every day there was something to do, something to focus on, in order to get me to that state of emotional numbness, in which he could just say do, and immediately happened. There was no hesitation, there was no thought, there were no moral compunctions, there was no interference. He said jump, and it was how high. That's what happened. And it was a systematic process until he got me where he needed me to be. Day in, day out, he controlled what I read, what I did, what I ate, my itinerary, when I slept, in every single aspect, from diet, studies, my activities, every single aspect and facet of my life. And he didn't give me a time to rest. See, those moments when he either took a week off or we went somewhere and didn't do anything, I would start to break down. So what he did, he just kept it going. And as long as I'm doing something, there is no time to reflect. There's no time to pause. There's no time to come to grasp with what's happening.
And how many crimes do you think he had you participate in?
Hundreds. There are a lot of things that are just robberies where he just says, look, this person's coming out, walk upon him. I don't care how you get it. And I'm watching you, and this is what I expect to see. And I mean, that's the way it was. It was just until I can get that pure, unadulterated violence, without hesitation, just do it. And it was again and again and again and again and again and again. I mean, that's just what happened.
By the time you got to Washington, were you so desensitized to it that it was just part of what was going to happen?
Yes. Yes. The only time I actually broke was on two occasions. The first one was when he asked me to shoot the pregnant lady, and I couldn't do it. And the second time was when there was a lull in the shootings for like 6 days, and we just had an argument. He kicked me out the car and told me to go about my business, and then came back like about 3 hours later to pick me up, and I was still sitting in the same spot. I was a nervous wreck, man. He created. I didn't have a personality to begin with. When I say that, there were no stable roots. I was unsure of myself. And so he gave me something to latch onto, and he controlled it. It's hard to explain, but that's just what happened.
Now, the actual, and we talked a little bit about this too. I'm not going to dwell on the details, but the actual shootings themselves. There were many before D.C., but the D.C. ones that raised all of the alarm. There was, you told police one thing when you were arrested, and that was what?
That I did everything. I mean, once they told me I was in Virginia, I did everything I thought I could do to save his life. And, I mean, it was just a mixture of half-truths, details that only I or the killer would know, because I was there. And, I mean, what's crazy is this entire process, I'm concerned for him. And he doesn't give a rat's ass whether I live or die. But I mean, until Carmita was a part of my defense team, I wasn't cooperating with my attorneys. I just wanted to die. I didn't care. And there was a reason I wanted to die. I didn't want to live with this stuff, number one. And number two, I want to be a martyr. Kill me. Get it over with.
But that's what he wanted, right?
Correct.
Now, so walk me through, because I do think a lot of people care about this. Walk me through how one of these worked.
A shooting?
Yeah.
They were all different. What I can tell you, I'll tell you about the first 5. The first 5 was based on the strategy of compacting everything within one area. Now, you're going to use the system against itself. They're going to be so overloaded that there is really nothing they can do. So we had like 60 different spots that were located. And we've done this for like 3 weeks, just driving around picking areas. And in the entire Montgomery County and a few other surrounding areas, we had different places picked out. And we stayed at them for only like 10 minutes. And if we went for 10 minutes, if there was an opening, he was in the trunk, I'd let him know if he had to go. If not, I turn the engine on, he come back up front, we move to the next spot. Everything's still in the trunk, and we park to the other spot. We already had, whatever the location, it had multiple possible parking spots that were possibly open where a shot could be taken from. And we drive up, I park, he'd park, he'd go in the trunk, I'd put my window down halfway, and I could see whatever is in front of me, to my left and to my right. My focus is on witnesses, passengers, and whenever there was an opening, I told him to shoot. And it was just one rapid after another. If there wasn't an opening within 10 minutes, we moved. And
so the people, the victims, were entirely at random at that point.
Correct.
There was no studying of the victims at that point. It was whoever was there.
No. Whoever was there.
Now, you're a teenager at that point, and you are picking targets for Muhammad in the back with a rifle, knowing...
I don't pick a target. I tell him when he has a go.
Okay. So, but when you're saying go, you know at that point that you are ending someone's life.
Yes.
Is that explain what that feels like at the time to
There is no
Lee Malvo?
There is no feeling. At that point in time, I've been desensitized. I've been killing people for months. It's not a whole year. Day in and day out. In the midst of the task, there is no feeling. The best way I'll explain it is the Paul LaRusso situation. Once it got to a point where I get in the zone, there is nothing else but whoever is before me, and anything that comes between me and, as he would say, the target, I'm either going to destroy it, or if it's too big, find a way around it. But nothing is going to stop me but death to get that done. That is what I was taught to do, that I was told to do. That's what was drilled into me day in, day out. See, there were conversations and lectures every single day. When I was dealing with someone, he'd watch the relationship, and the critique was never ending. So at one moment you could meet me at the YMCA, and I seem like a normal person, but we can go to the locker room. I just come out the shower, and he looks at me, and I know exactly what that look means and exactly what I have to do. And there is an immediate change. Immediate. I go from being a jovial kid to being ice cold. Cold.
Now, remember, we talked about this too, that some of the officers who arrested you guys described your eyes as being shark-like, empty, black.
Correct. That's what I call the numbness. It's a zone. Between the lectures, the critique, the doing this stuff over and over again, which is committing violence, and breathing techniques and
60 seconds remaining.
Breathing techniques and visualization, I was able to tap into a place that is, if there was a soul there, it was behind layers and layers and layers of darkness. It was just blank. It was a blank slate, tabula rasa, for him to write whatever he wanted to inscribe. And whatever was written...
Did you call me back when this is over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever is written, that's exactly what I'm going to do. That's exactly what's going to happen. And every once in a while, my conscience would burst through, but only every once in a while. Only under tremendous pressure. And then you just quickly be submerged.
You have 10 seconds remaining.
All right, I'll call back.
Okay, I'm right here waiting. Thanks. You mentioned your conscience would burst through, but only every once in a while. When your conscience burst through in the middle of this, how did you feel? What was your understanding of what was going on?
Well, see, when my conscience burst through, it was, you know, your conscience when you know you're doing something with a little small voice, voice in a loudspeaker, and it would just, it wouldn't stop. So it was, the feeling that came along with that was this overwhelming, it's debilitating. There's this, it's like everything's compressed in a sardine can in the back of my head, and it just opens and everything just bursts at one time. Everything just comes at you. So you've been doing this stuff for like 3 months. You haven't had a chance to come to grasp with it, and then, you know, you sit back to 2 days, and then all of a sudden, everything just comes back. It's debilitating. It is every single fiber of your being. It's not just guilt. It's first emotions, put them together and multiply them several times, and that's what it feels like.
Something weird just happened. All I got was it's not just guilt, and then it kind of fuzzed out.
No.
No. What I'm saying is the phone call. You said it's not just guilt, and then I didn't hear anything after that.
Well, I said, you know, take all the worst emotions that you can imagine and multiply it several times, and that's what it feels like. It's like a haunting is being revisited by a million beings. And they each have a piece of you that is allotted to them and they want it. That's the best image that I could conjure up. It's debilitating.
Well, but so when that would happen, did you realize, like, I'm killing people? I mean, this is about as serious a thing as there can be. How do you mentioned this as well. You know, people have asked you over the years, why didn't you just stop? What made you keep going?
I couldn't say no to John. I couldn't say no to Muhammad. He had tapped in to that need, what I call spasm. He said no. I'd gone too far, in too deep, and I didn't have. He'd stripped me naked. And, I mean, he'd taken every single aspect of my thought process. I thought as he did. If you ask anyone then who spoke to me, I did not spoke like a 17-year-old Jamaican kid. I spoke like a 46 or 42, between 46 to 54-year-old black American male who'd been through a lot of shit, who had a lot of anger and angst. I mean, I didn't talk about myself. I was not the focal point. Most teenagers are self-absorbed. I was not the focal point of my attention or focus. He was the focal point. Everything I did, thought, revolved around him. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Now, the other thing that I found particularly interesting was you said earlier, and we talked about this yesterday, this idea of him being a coward, and the shots that he took being, well, you describe it. Which ones were yours and why?
Well, throughout this entire ordeal, if there anything was to be done where there was a chance of getting caught or risk of getting shot at in the process, because this has happened several times, where I went to rob someone and they were armed and I got shot at and I had to kill them in the process. He was nowhere to be found. He was somewhere hiding, looking in a distance and critiquing me when I returned. And in the D.C. shootings, if there was anything to be done outside the car, it was me. In the safety of the trunk, which acts somewhat like a suppressor, I mean, that's him. So, and that's always been the case. Throughout the entire year, if there was anything to be done where there was major risk, he had me do it. And he would sit on his ass, and when I returned, critique me on what shouldn't do, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And the sick thing about it is, he would tell me what he was doing to me while he was doing it, but I didn't know. He said, imagine that you're hunting a deer, you're bow hunting. Now, you know this creature's habits. You've been out in the woods. You know everything about this animal. You shot it, and you're not going to confront it. It's a beast. You had experience with this. He said, you just let it bleed itself out. It is going to die, and you just follow the trail. And he would use different analogies, and he was talking about me. I was that animal, that wild fury that he created, and it was used to an end, and in the end, I was going to die. He was bloodletting me the entire time. I was the first victim.
Do you think I know we've talked about this, but do you think that was how it was going to end?
Not then, because I was blind. I was naive. I mean, even when I got locked up, I was defending the guy for years. So I was blind. If there was anything as blind faith, I mean, I was the poster boy. I couldn't see it. everyone, when you're in the midst of those emotions, being as crippled as I was, I mean, I got to the point where I didn't think. I just did.
And now, looking back on it, well, this is a very important question I want to ask you. If you could, and you have the ability to...
Hey, hold on a second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Kind of scared. Sorry about that. I had to get my blood work.
No problem. Talk to the victims for a second, the families. What you have an opportunity here to talk directly to them in your own voice through this. To tell them what you'd like them to hear from you.
I'm going to use my own experience with what I've moved on from being angry against Muhammad is I am not going to allow him, even in absence and in death, to continue to revisit pain and anguish upon me for something that's completely beyond my control right now. And taking away the precious moments of my life with thoughts and wasted energy about this individual. And we can never change what happened. There's nothing I can say, no apologies. There's nothing I can say except that don't allow me and my actions to continue to victimize you for the rest of your life. It may sound cold, but it isn't. It's the only sound thing I can offer. You and you alone have the power to control that. And you take the power away from this other person, this monster, and you take control. And this isn't to say you're not going to feel anger or it may be even guilt. You're human. Those things are going to happen, and that's okay. But don't allow myself or Muhammad to continue to make you a victim for the rest of your life. It isn't worth it. That's.
You mentioned, though, in there that you believe an apology doesn't really make anything any better. But do you feel sorry? I mean, I imagine you probably do on a very deep level, but...
I am sorry. I am sorry. There's no way to express. There's no way to express that. I mean, this is something I have to live with for the rest of my life, man. As with almost everyone else who's been affected. It's my cross. The main reasons I don't even go into saying that is because most people don't want to. What am I going to tell them? I'm sorry I murdered your only child. I'm sorry I killed your husband. I'm sorry I murdered your wife. What do I tell the child who was waiting for his father to come home and dad never showed up? There's nothing, yeah, this is going to be one of the last times I'm doing this. I can't keep it.
Well, but I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels to me like these are things that people should hear. What you're saying is it's so hard for you that it's almost impossible to express.
Yeah. Yesterday before we met, I was fine. I worked out before we met. I counted my prayer beads. I did everything. When I woke up this morning, it was hell. Now, it wasn't as bad as it was 10 years ago, but I sat for the last 12 hours just sitting in one spot in the bed, dreading this phone call.
Well, why? This is the key, I think. Why?
Because it's one of the worst things to confront. You're opening the gate I'm opening the gate to a place where it is filled with guilt, self-loathing, and pain. And the thing is, once I open it, it takes weeks, if not months, to dissipate. This is not going to end after the phone call is over. This, and it never really ends. It just abates for a while, and that's why.
But isn't that the lesson? In some ways, isn't that what's important for people to understand? Is that there are unending consequences.
The lesson for people that are listening, everyone will take something different. It's a child who finds himself in a similar relationship with someone and can see it. For them, the lesson is going to be different. For a victim who's lost someone, it's going to be different. For someone who is a victim of a violent crime, even though I did not commit the crime, they may hear something, and for them, the lesson, it's going to be different for each person based on where they're at. And it's for them to decide what they can take from it, what they can learn, if there is any value to it. That's my lesson. Their lesson is going to be different. Their journey is different.
What have you learned? What has Lee Malvo learned?
I went to him, to Mohammed, because I felt alone in this world, and I've come full circle, and I'm still alone. And it's something I've come to accept. And by aloneness, I'm not speaking about loneliness. I mean being alone with God. It's accepting myself. For years, I beat up on myself. I didn't blame my parents. I didn't blame anyone else. I blamed myself. As a child, I blamed myself. I felt I was the problem. And I realized that love is a choice, and I can choose to love myself and accept myself exactly as I am. And with all the admixtures of virtues and vices, because that's who I am. And whatever I hold dear and near and know to be true, do that. And even if I have to stand alone, do that. And I mean, that's all I have.
Is the hate and the rage that burned inside you gone?
Most of it. There are different layers. Now, as far as would I ever, if 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, if I were to be on the street, would I ever kill or would I? No, I wouldn't do that. But as I said, I mean, learning to deal with myself and forgive myself, there are different layers. I mean, something like this, you can't tackle all of it at the same time. It's either going to be a nervous breakdown or suicide. You go at it incrementally, piece by piece.
Well, what we talked about yesterday, you said, I was a monster.
I mean, I was a monster. If you look up the definition, I mean, that's what a monster is. I was a ghoul. I was a thief. I stole people's lives. I did someone else's bidding just because they said so. I mean, that is the definition of a monster. There is no rhyme or reason or sense. It just does.
Have 60 seconds remaining.
It's like I said, the shark guys. It's a predator. It just does exactly what it does, what it's trying to do, kill. I mean, in that state, in that place, I mean, that's what I was.
What are you now?
A young man in I'm a young man who's trying to make the best of one hell of a circumstance. And I mean that hell of a circumstance.
You have 10 seconds remaining.
Hold on, I'll call back.
Okay. This is Josh.
This is Global Tellink. This call originates from a Virginia correctional facility and may be recorded or monitored. You have a collect call from
Lee Malvo,
an inmate in Red Onion State Prison. To hear the maximum cost of this call, press 9. To accept, dial 0 now. Your call is being connected. Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Josh?
Yes.
Before we continue, I'll let you know that this is going to be the last call because I'm only permitted 4 calls per month.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry to have eaten all of them.
Then the system.
This call originates from a Virginia correctional facility and may be recorded or monitored.
I mean, this is important.
Okay. No, I appreciate that, and just to let you know, I am recording this again. You mentioned you're now a young man who's trying to make the best of one hell of a circumstance. How do you do that knowing what your future is?
Because my future is what I make it. I mean, okay, yes, there are limits. There are confines. I mean, to a certain extent, I earned the right to be here in this place. But that does not predicate how I choose to be with people and how I choose to look at myself. I mean, if that does not mean I should be disrespectful to you or I shouldn't show common courtesy or treat you the way I want to be treated. I mean, I still have relationships with people. Some people I've met. I mean, I still, give people the opportunity to prove their mettle and what they're worth. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. And that's the risk of being human being and being in a relationship. That's life. And I don't hold any hard feelings. I mean, sometimes, like in a current situation with a person I tried to write a book with, he was a con man, a ripoff. And, God bless him. I mean, this is what happens. In a situation like that, it's like this. If I can't find it within myself to have, why take so heavy a vengeance in such a slight offense? What does that say about me? And what if I were to be judged by that standard? I wouldn't be here. So, you know, it's just life. And you know, I meditate, I pray, I read, I study. I try to live with integrity as best as I can. I continue to learn. If I can help someone, I can. I avoid bad company. I've never been a drinker, don't smoke, don't gamble. And if it isn't necessary, I don't talk to you. I mean, it's just because unnecessary babbling just leads to arguments and trouble. Everyone in here has an opinion, so keep your thoughts to yourself. And I mean, it's a long, lonely road. There's no one else here to understand. There's no one else here to empathize. There's no one else to share anything with. This is not the kind of place where you share things.
Well, it is, after all, though, a punishment.
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, that's what it is. So.
Do you, and I know this is a loaded question, but do you believe your punishment is the appropriate one?
This is a loaded answer. No. See, I was a child, man. I wasn't some 17-year-old he'd pick up off the street and just give a gun and say, go kill this person. I was a 14-year-old kid who was homeless, who was taking care of himself, paying rent, paying his tuition, staying out of trouble. I mean, I've been offered to sell drugs. I've been offered to roam the streets. I didn't do that. I just found someone who had a way in, and he just used it. And should I be in prison now? Yes. But forever, till February 41st, I don't know. We'll find out.
I mean, I guess I ask that because, I mean, you don't shy away from taking responsibility for your actions. I mean, the things that happened. The people who died are dead and will always be dead.
Yeah. The best analogy that I can use is this. You take a child in the Congo that's 12 years old. Some guy comes in, take him up, kills his mom and his father before him, and makes use of him for the next 3 years before he finally escapes. Now, let's say he's participated in the murder of hundreds of people. Is that child responsible? Yes, he did, and yes, he may have known better, but what were the options? It's like people say every day, you know, a woman that's in an abusive relationship. Someone looked at it from the outside and said, man, there are multiple opportunities. Why couldn't she leave? Why she stay for 20 years? It's not that simple. Once someone has you emotionally, they have your mind. The body is just a vessel. It's like a shoe. And the foot dictates where it's going. And if I control that, you're going to go in that direction. I had dreams at one point. I wanted to do great things. I had a lot of friends who thought, you're going to be known someday. But no one would think, not for this. Not for this, because when I set my mind to something, I always had a one-pointed focus, and I do, there were days I was going to school, I had net for 3 days. I didn't complain to my classmates. I went to school, took the same test they did, and did the best I could. I studied under street lights when my landlord kicked me out and turned the light off. I did everything I could, and my best failed. And in life, it works out like that sometimes.
Now, in your mind, what's the failure? Not breaking free?
No, well, the failure is, in my mind, is this. This is not what I wanted for myself. I did not, before I met Muhammad, years before I met Muhammad, before my form teacher took me in, I was homeless. I was still going to school. The streets were there. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't party, I didn't sell drugs, I didn't join gangs, I didn't hang out. I was in the library. I used the best of myself to go in the direction I wanted to go, and I lost track. I lost focus, and it was that emotional hole that wasn't filled. It wasn't a. He came in here and said, "Well, he sounds fairly intelligent. Why couldn't?" It's not that simple. We would like to think that we're logical, but if you sit for 10 minutes and look at your thought process, it's random feelings and thoughts about different things you've seen and heard, read, and witnessed. We're not logical. We're moved by our deepest sentiments. And then, for most part, we think about and rationalize later. Look at the world we live in today. Most people move off that feeling, that sentiment. What we feel most deeply about, that's what we give it, whether it's wittingly or unwittingly, whether we know or we don't know, whether it's conscious or it's an unconscious drive. That's what we're going to act on.
Now, I'm going to take you back to something that I think is important to address, so I know we get it in before the phone call ends. You had mentioned that there were three things, images, moments that come to you that, for lack of a better term, kind of haunt you to this day. What are they, and why are those the things?
Well, the first one is Mr. Franklin's eyes. And what makes they're penetrating, but it is the worst sort of pain I've ever seen in my life. His eyes. It's the worst. Words do not possess the depth in which to fully convey that emotion. And what I felt when I saw it. You ever did something as a child when you get caught, you go in the cabinet and you steal a Nestle bar, you're not supposed to, and you get caught and you immediately feel like you want to disappear? It's that you just want to crawl in some corner and you feel like the worst piece of scum on the planet. The second is Conrad Johnson's mother. When I was being sentenced in Maryland, and she had the opportunity to speak. For me, at that point in time, to a certain extent, that's the very first time the otherness, and what I mean by that is the immediacy of how my actions, my ignorant actions affected the lives of others. That's the first time it really registered. And It was heart-wrenching. It just, before that, I understood on the peripheral level, but none of the victims or the surviving loved ones had ever had the opportunity to really confront me. Because even after the first trial and the sentencing, I was still in a very dark place. I was coming to terms, but let's put it this way. Carmita would speak to me one day, and I'm one person, and I would go back, and Muhammad used to have me listen to tapes when I went to sleep, tapes that he would make. He would read and have me listen to speeches and all sorts of stuff, and I could hear this stuff in my head over and over again. So you have thousands of hours of that's inside my head. So for years, you know, I battled with that until I learned to accept it, and by accepting it, I learned how to control it. And then once I understood it, then I gained power over it, and it no longer rules, or it no longer is even an issue. You know, until her, I didn't really understand. You have to be confronted with something in order to really understand it. You have to be forced to face it.
And what was the third one?
The third one is really a combination of a lot of things. It's the third one is the worst one. This will happen. I'll explain it this way. When I returned from Maryland, there's a program here they have in the school channel. It's done by Dr. David Faminow, who actually worked for the prosecution during my first trial.
Yeah, I've seen him testify a number of times.
Correct. Now, there's a program he has, something about change. I've watched it several times, but there was a particular episode in which he was telling someone was speaking, and it was a prisoner, and he was telling about a crime and, you know, who it affected. He said, well, you know, it affects my children, my wife, and blah, blah, blah. And Dr. Faminow began to break down, well, not only did you affect or devastate the life of the family you robbed, but also the neighbors and people in the surrounding community and people that read and felt and knew what that was like. He says, once I began to list the victims for every single possible crime that I could think of, the number quickly it was like multiplying by 7. It just exponentially just grew. When I saw that, I would say that's the closest I came to having a nervous breakdown.
Because you realized it was so many people.
The enormity of it. See, when you're in the midst of just doing this shooting or doing this, that was my sole focus. I didn't give thought, and this was something I was taught and something that was systematically taken from me. You never get a grasp on exactly what you actually did and what the ramifications were for others. Because, I mean, see, that's what, the reason I say he's a coward is this. What makes a man is he understands. What separates an adult from a child is that an adult understands that what you do does not only affect you, and you have a responsibility, not only to yourself, but to others. Some you know and some you don't know. And that's what separates a responsible adult or human being from a coward, or someone who just wishes to negate responsibility and just continue to lie to him or herself simply as a way to run away from their own pain. And, you know, I am freer now than I've been at any other point in my life. That is crazy to hear, but it's just a fact. Because I was in here for the first couple of years, I embraced being in segregation because I had to look at myself. And because I wanted to learn, I needed to understand, I didn't shy away from that. If you do not face your pain, you do not confront it, you do not confront your problems, they will find you and defeat you. Because that which you are unaware of, it's outside your sphere of control, and it will enslave you. Knowledge is power, because there's a difference between knowing of and knowing about a thing, and actually knowledge involves doing. It's an implicit experience, and we know by doing. And in order to know, Benjamin Franklin said something that I keep in my mind. He said, it's a quote from his autobiography, he said, "Learn, wretches, learn the motions of your mind, why you were created, for what you were designed in the great moral end of humankind." And I think that sums up everything. Know thyself. In order to do that, you have to learn the motions of your mind, because what you think dictates how you experience and feel about yourself, others, and the world in general. And from that, everything else that you do will be predicated upon that. So if you're not mindful of that, if you don't know yourself, you can know nothing else. Because at least if you know where you stand, you understand where your boundaries are, what your conditions are, what you value. But if you don't know that, you know nothing. You have nothing. Because possessions, they don't belong to you.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Everything that you have right now, you can't take it with you when you die. And this is something about the truth. What's real is real and will never change. Anything that can be taken from you never really belongs to you. We live in an age where people don't possess their possessions. It's the other way around. Their possessions possess and consume them.
Well, I'm gonna lose you here in a second. I'm gonna stop recording.